share some updates on our side against a few different areas that we've been focusing on. So you will have seen, hopefully, I dropped a short pitch video that we gave in Bangkok at the staking summit. I think that's probably the best way to share with you how I'm telling the story as of today. And I would love to invite anybody to give their thoughts and feedback. I think the biggest area that we're now trying to kind of strengthen, and we've got a number of conversations underway, is really making that traction section pop. So that's been a focus for a while, and it continues to be a focus. ZK Cross has been delayed slightly because in the kind of audits and the work we were doing with them, there was a minor bug that was detected, which obviously needs to be fixed. So hopefully sorry, I've just noticed Matthias has been trying to speak, and no, Matthias, we haven't been able to hear you, or at least I haven't. So hopefully they're still hoping to be fully launched within stealth mode with us by the end of November, but at this rate it may drift into December, unfortunately. Hi, Zaturov, is that how we say your name? Welcome. Cryptid doesn't have any audio. It looks like we have a lot of audio issues today. Zaturov, would you mind if we mute you? Because there's a lot of background noise. Well, that's another way to deal with it. So I'd love people's thoughts on that. It's where we first introduced the, doing for data what Bitcoin did for Moneyline. There's been the initial paid media experiments, boosting content on Twitter, and seeing if we can use that to kind of grow awareness and visibility, help people see our narrative, get it out there a bit more. We're also starting our first KOL experiments. Initially, those will start small while we figure out exactly what targeting works best, what demographics work best. That started last week. So hopefully we'll be starting to ramp that up towards the end of the month. We have a number of bits of news from a product standpoint. I don't know if you've noticed already, but there has been an upgrade to the delegation page. So it's now we're focusing on trying to reduce friction in as many places as we can find it. So there's going to be some work underway to improve our docs and our general DevX for developers. And then we're also trying to lower friction for our stakers and our holders, and for our operators. So one of the things you will see first probably is around the delegation page. We will be announcing the airdrop round 2, the kind of top up airdrop round that we talked about previously. We will be announcing something, giving an update on that next week. There has been a slight complication because of the kind of the changes in the token. We need to just confirm how best to do it. It just needs to check that the mechanisms are right. So I will be able to share more on that next week. It is still underway. We have the calculations, we have the methodology. We just need to square away some final details. There's also a new grant announcement. So Boosty Labs are building on Partisia. They are building a lending product. So that will mean that, once ZK Cross is live, we will then shortly afterwards, probably mid Q1, have a lending product. And hopefully by kind of late Q1, we will have a liquid staking protocol. So that will help us make sure that we have solid DeFi infrastructure for builders. We have things for people to interact with on Partisia. ZK Cross, I think, has got a very interesting proposition that we're going to be diving into more with them over coming weeks and sharing content with you around why we think that's exciting. There's also an update that most of you have seen around being able to use MPC for gas, and also having a wrapped MPC on Ethereum. So technically, we are there on both of those at the moment. We have yet to make a big announcement around wrapped MPC on Ethereum, because we want to build that into into a bit more of a story. So we're trying to understand what our options are in the EVM ecosystem, seeing where we could improve our tooling or infrastructure by plugging into some of the tools and infra available on EVM, as well as looking at opportunities to participate in DeFi elsewhere. As soon as we have something concrete on that, we'll share it with you guys. But if you have any thoughts or ideas of things you'd love us to do, then do also feel free to share them back with us. The other piece is Wrapped BTC. Bruce, I don't know if you want to give a quick update here.
No, nothing more than WBTC will be available also as a BYOC in the network in the coming weeks. It's probably going to be next week, potentially the week after. So that should be pretty exciting news as well.
And then the other thing that is happening next week, I'm actually going to go over to Aarhus to sit down with, well, first I'm going to sit down with Ivan Damgaard. We are recording a podcast, and it will be a little bit about, the backstory, the history, his experience, his thoughts, the problems he was setting out to solve when he first set down this road, his vision for the future, his commentary and thoughts on what's going on today. If you have any questions you would like to ask Ivan, we will put the invitation out in Telegram as well. But we will be delighted to ask those on your behalf. The goal is to kind of have a nice kind of solid podcast that we can share on all of our channels, but also to have a kind of backlog of content that we can clip and use for different purposes as well. While I am in Aarhus, it'll also be a great chance to sit down with the broader development team, really look at the roadmap. There's been a lot of conversations, particularly around things that would make operator life easier. There's been a lot of discussion internally about how we reduce friction for all of our key stakeholder groups. So I'm hoping that we will be able to share an update on the roadmap, probably not next week because it will take a while to process, but before the end of the year, so that everybody knows what's coming and when. I think the other thing is just to say about some of the things that are upcoming. We do have a proof of concept in place now for an AI use case. So you can expect to see us creating a little bit of content around that so that people can understand what it is and why we think it's cool, what you can do with it, where it could be used. As I said kind of previously, that the focus very much is on, we've got a few different pillars, but the big things are always awareness and adoption. So now as we start to ramp up our social content, we start to get our paid media going, our KOL collaborations going. We've got a Twitter space coming up with House of Chimera in a couple of weeks, which would be really nice. There was a lot of KOL engagement on the narrative tweet that went out on Monday, which was actually all unpaid. That was all just from people that have been working with us previously. We're going to be kind of continuing that, so you should see a lot more of us. We will also be, Maria and I are working on how we reimagine the engagement programs and how we can kind of reduce friction for people that are contributing, but also grow that contributor pool. Sorry, who would have thought that was a hard word to say? So that we will update on by mid of next month, if not before, actually. Maybe we could give you an update on that by end of month, actually. And within that, we're just, one of the topics for conversation next week is around how do we empower the community more? How do we give you more of a say, or more control, or more choice, more voice in what we're doing, and how do we increase transparency, and what are the actions that we can collectively take? So please do always keep your suggestions coming. They do all get heard. And yeah, so then the other thing then is the adoption side of things, where, as I said, we're trying to reduce friction for people coming in. And then there's a number of use cases that we've been focusing in on. So we have our DeFi ecosystem building. At the same time, we're looking at projects that could be kind of flagship projects in real world asset tokenization, in identity as a possible space. I think that that kind of intersect of AI and DeSci, which is mooning at the moment, and kind of health tech, which is, you know, where there's, I think, an increased focus on the value, but also the risk of holding sensitive user data in the light of 23andMe. You know, there is some interesting verticals, and we're talking to projects across each of them to see where we will find, you know, the highest potential for a killer app, like somebody that can really step change our volume. In the meantime, there are a number of other projects building on us. Of our Meta should be launching their Sealbid auction towards the end of the month, and we're talking to them about how to amplify that and have as much fun with it as possible. We've also been having really good conversations with Profiler, who are doing some very interesting things around user research, and trying to enable people to retain better custody of their data while enabling brands to interact with it. So that, I think, is a very nice use case for MPC. And that's also strengthening our bridges with Cardano. We've also had some really good conversations with some of the other chains that we're connected to while we were in Bangkok. And that was one of the things that we were making sure we did while we were out there. So yeah, so that, I guess, is a very long monologue, but that's the state of the world right now. I am also going to turn all of this into a kind of a state of the network update that I will share with all of you. That will be published so that people can comment in whatever way they see fit. But I will open the floor. Does anybody have questions, thoughts? Bruce?
Adrian, one thing that I wanted to add, and this is new to Adrian as well, so she's going to get caught by surprise. Boosty Labs, as Adrian mentioned, is building a lending protocol on our chain, and they want to hear from you guys. They want to hear from the community members that is interested in lending protocol, and they want to hear what you guys want to see, your feedback, how should this look, and so on and so forth. So, and we're going to announce it in the community as well. But if you are interested in having conversations with Boosty Labs about the lending protocol on our side, please let me know. Please let Maria know. We will get you connected. It's probably going to be a Telegram channel, but they're interested in hearing your opinions. So please let us know. They would just want to hear what it is that they'd like to see. User experience, features, functions, and so on and so forth. And they asked if we can connect them to our community. Mhm. Absolutely.
Any thoughts from anybody that's on the call around lending products or anything else? Any questions, any thoughts?
I had two I could throw out there. I guess the first one is I think you mentioned a couple times that it's great that the community is providing suggestions and you're looking to find ways for them to kind of have a participative role in what's being done, what's coming next. Is there a way that Profila could kind of support that, or some kind of tool where the community could see the flow of ideas coming in, see them being handled and responded to. I mean, I know I'm haunting the Telegram and Discord channels and seeing responses from the team. But I think it's different if that's structured and you see, okay, this idea has 30 community members behind it, whereas this one is just one person asking and the response was this.
Yeah, so I don't think that that is the problem Profiler is setting out to solve, but I do think it is a good, it is a gap. In projects I've been in previously, I feel like that's been answered to a large degree through a forum and a snapshot, where people can post ideas and you can, see how much sentiment there is behind it and see who's commenting on it or if there's tumbleweed. And then ultimately you can put it to a vote and see what the community wants to do. Personally, I think that's something I'd love to see in Partisia. Would that solve it, do you think, or are there better tools out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always good, and it lets the community start, knowing, okay, the answer to this is in this post, and we're gonna stop this conversation here and redirect it to the post that answers it. And it becomes kind of self-serving, which is useful also. From a product standpoint, I've also seen some really cool boards done with like ClickUp or other tools like it. I'm sure the same can be done in what you've already got, where it's just a question of being able to upvote certain issues so that you can prioritize what the community really wants versus who's shouting the loudest.
Yeah, I think that's a nice idea. Anybody else? Let's see what the community wants. Does anybody else want that? Oh, in which case, Maria, can you talk to Bruce? How's everyone else feeling? I know the markets have generally been buoyant, which always helps moods. I know it hasn't yet hit all coins yet, or utility coins, or whichever nomenclature we're going with, which I know can cause a bit of less buoyancy, I guess. But yeah, I'd love to. Cryptid is typing a few questions, but I can't access. Do you want to just type them in the chat and then I'll read them out, Cryptid? Um, yeah, but I guess anybody else who can speak, whose mic is working. Frankie, how are you feeling? Do you have any big concerns or questions you want answered? You can speak. Apologies for putting you on the spot. Okay, anyone else? Gemios? Any questions? While we wait for Cryptid to type.
I have one actually. Do you guys have any plans to develop a forum for the community to?
Yeah.
Hello? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I
Sorry. You can hear me? Okay, great. Yeah, I just wondering if there is any plan in a roadmap if you guys are looking to create a forum so the community can interact and can, maybe a nice way to organize the discussions and perhaps use this as a voting system as well, so people can vote and stuff like that.
Oh, really? Oh, you mean you and I? We were talking about sorry, I sound like I'm losing my marbles. Yeah, so Jimmy, I think it's a great question. It's actually it's something I've always appreciated in other projects I've been in, and I think it's a great way to have those kind of structured debates on topics that mean something to the community that can get lost in Telegram or Discord. And I think it's a great way for people to express their views and to be able to see how much support there is of particular concepts, ideas. You know, I think it's fairly straightforward to implement. It would link naturally into something, you know, like a snapshot potentially. I think personally, I think it's absolutely something we should do. And it is on my agenda to discuss with the council, and just see if we can get that through. I for me, I can't see why we wouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's just we already have two platforms like Telegram and Discord, right? I think we are pretty much more active at the moment in Telegram. But
Yeah.
having a third one, you might want to think like which one you actually want to focus on, unless you determine like the forum before
You
specific
guys-
subjects and stuff.
Have you guys had experience with the forum function Discord? I've played around with it, and there has been I've had some thoughts about implementing it in certain channel. But I don't know if anybody has seen that actually working in other Discord channels that you guys run.
So I've never been in a community that's used it. All of the communities I've been in have been their own reskinned version of Discourse as the forum. So I'll throw that one out to everybody else. Has anybody else seen the Discord forum function and liked it? I'm going to take that as a no. We can put that out in Telegram, Bruce. Let's see what other people have felt. What I've seen of Discourse is that, yes, you know, typically you do end up with another channel, because very often the projects will have their own Discord, their own Telegram, either official or unofficial, and then the forum. And very often there have been conversations about whether or not it's too many, whether it's too fragmented. But it's been impossible to remove any of them. People seem to play a slightly different role. So from that regard, I do feel like there is a space for more serious, more structured conversations and for governance in future. It just, to me, doesn't feel native to Discord. But then, as I say, I haven't tried the Discourse, the Discord forum. Matthias, have you ever used it?
No, personally not. The ones I like the most and seen work the best is something like, for example, Uniswap, you know, where you have these dedicated governance forums where you take the temperature check and sort of follow a process and then eventually get it up for a snapshot voting. And I think it's also great because you can sort of break it into different community groups. You know, there will be someone who is node operators in our case, there'll be someone who is more like a token holder kind, and maybe someone like a builder, and they should be able to have their own subsections of governance forum.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Uniswap does use Discourse under the hood. They've just reskinned it. It feels like the one that's used by most projects, and therefore has probably been most optimized for kind of that decentralized community use case. You know, I think you're right. There's a really well created playbook that we don't have to reinvent. Scripted, you're building up the suspense for your questions. Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Hello. Wow. Sorry, I've been in the background trying to get my settings to work, so apologies.
No, thank you for persisting.
Ah, I got there. I had some questions about the report. The report you mentioned, the state of the network. Will that feature things like user growth, wallet
Yes.
address growth, node operator rewards, and that would be really useful to see the sort of statistical growth of the network.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
certainly. If there are any things you particularly want to see in it, do feel free to ping me as well. But I've made notes of those ones.
Yeah, things like node operator rewards, how they're increasing, new wallets created, percentage of people now holding MPC or staking MPC. That would be really useful.
Sounds good.
I've got some specific questions about projects and the state of where they're at within regards to Partizia. The first one was the ad-free search engine that we had. I clicked on the website recently and it seemed to be dead, the link to the, I've forgotten the name of it, Kin I think it was. That is an ad-free search engine that Partizia was developing.
You're talking about the Kin search engine, KIN.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck
What's
in the
happening with
funding.
that?
Yeah, they're kind of halted at the moment. They're having some funding troubles. We're trying to help see if we can help fund them a little bit or help with fundraising for their platform, but they're kind of stuck at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed the link is dead. So does that look like it's going to happen? Or do you think that's
I don't know.
the end of it?
I haven't spoken with the founder for about a month or so. Let me reach back out to him and then see how things are going. But the last I heard, he was having some funding issues.
Thank you. The
I
second
didn't
one
realize
was
that the site was down. I'll double check also.
yeah. The second one was the Red Cross and when we can expect to see node operators receiving payment from the Red Cross.
So that I think that my understanding, and I will need to just I've seen a couple of things that I've been a little confused on with that one. So there was a full deployment with the Red Cross. I think it was run on testnet and therefore not on mainnet. And then the plan was to run a second deployment of the humanitarian token solution. That was planned to be happening now. And then because of some of the geopolitical issues, it has been delayed and I'm not sure when it will run. Bruce, do you have an update?
No, and that's exactly where some of the challenges are. I think we were looking to do a field test in one of the conflict zones, but the people that we were in contact with to do the field test, we lost touch with them for quite some time. They recently came back and we're trying to figure out what the next steps are for the field test that we're trying to do. In the meanwhile, we are also looking at doing a non combat zone field test, a little bit more local. So once we have some additional updates on that, we will let you know. But I don't know if this is a good segue into what we were kind of working on in Bangkok, Adrian, because this ties into the shielded transactions.
I'm not sure what you're alluding to, Bruce, so it's very hard to say.
Well, we're talking about, OpenFi and BankFi, some of the things that we did in Bangkok that relates to the shielded transactions. I don't know if that's ready for discussion, but it's a good segue.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that comes back to what I was saying at the start around, where we are looking to ramp up traction and identify where we are closest to a product market fit, where there are the biggest problems with the largest transaction volume that we can uniquely solve with our technology that we care about. And there are a few that seem to have a lot of potential, and we've got some very interesting conversations underway, and we still need to see how those play out. One of those is in the space of sovereign identity, which impacts a number of different verticals that are booming right now, but that is going to become increasingly important as we get closer to real world adoption, and regulated environments in particular, and how we do that in a way that's in line with our ethos. The other one is with regards to that kind of, this concept of OpenFi is there's a movement building around OpenFi led by Gnosis that's around this idea of trying to hit feature parity with Web2 banks on crypto rails. So instead of hitting everything with the sledgehammer of DeFi, which does all enterprises or all enterprise clients, or all people that are onboarding and that have a different point of view on the world, who expect different services and products, some of which will always require a degree of things like KYC, where enterprises are making payments, regulated entities who are not comfortable with the sledgehammer of transparency in DeFi, where there is the need to have kind of confidential information shielded. There is a movement starting to grow there. There are a few really big players within it, and I think there is a clear space for our product as part of it. And we've been added to the different groups to discuss how we work together and who might want to work with us and build with us or build on us to realize that. And then the other one is around DeSci, health tech, using our credentials and history with the Danish Health Service in particular, but also our NGO credentials. There is a moment in health tech right now where people are realizing the risk associated with some of these data caches that they're holding. There's entities that are not getting value from that data because of the risk. There's others that are and are maybe getting into trouble. We can solve that in quite an elegant way, and that is another sector that is booming right now. The mind share for DeSci today is huge. So I think I know your question, Cryptid, was about very specific projects, and this is definitely a segue away from that, but is trying to continue those conversations to understand which of those is going to get us the most traction the most quickly, and then really double down on it in terms of our BD, but also our narratives, our marketing, what we prioritize within the protocol and the user experience. Yeah.
No, thank you. Am I okay to ask a very specific question about
Please.
what sort of rewards can NodeOps expect from the Red Cross? Has that ever been projected? Because it seems like it's quite a niche offering we're working on with them, not a very broad thing.
So I think there are a couple of aspects to that. So one is that I think that the specific use case for Red Cross is never going to be like the killer app. If it could extend to other philanthropic entities, then it starts to get a bit more interesting. But I think what we built for them and some of the functionality of that, and specifically one of the things that we did build within the Red Cross because of the nature of that project, was the ability to shield some of the transactions, to protect the identities and to protect the security of recipients. And that's something that if OpenFi were to blossom, that experience would be an edge for us. So specifically rewards from Red Cross, I don't think that has been projected. Short of knowing whether the next field test is going to go ahead and seeing how we can project that out. Personally, it's a great piece of our story, and it's enabled us to develop the thinking in the product, and I think it will be part of what we do longer term. I don't think it will be the game changer for our ops.
Well, thank you. Right, my third little thing I'd like to ask about is the state of Party.com, which a lot of early investors in Partisia went to because it was going to be the launch pad for Partisia in the NFT marketplace. We've now sort of seen a set of NFTs launched on Party.com that were launched on Solana and not on Partisia. And we've also seen them start a DEX with Ethereum, I think Arbitrum and Sol on there, but no MPC on there again. So I was wondering what's sort of happening with the relationship with Party.com, bearing in mind that they were supposed to be a Partisia project and the founder is one of the leadership teams of Partisia. It seems slightly distorted where they're going.
Yeah.
It seems to me that they should be brought back and told that they have to do things on Partisia.
I feel very aligned to how you feel, and I have a call that I'm trying to schedule with Brian to kind of discuss a lot of things, but that is certainly on the agenda. I don't have an update for you right now.
It seems very strange that they launch a DEX and there's Ethereum and Sol, but no MPC. You would have thought they would be the three main ones
Agreed.
that would be launched. Also, this not launching NFTs on Solana, not offering a marketplace, a launch pad for us. That seems very strange because that could give a level of activity with degens, with that aspects of the crypto community. I think you look at projects like Nia that are in a place where we should try and follow. Quite early on, they were launching NFTs on Nia that people could get behind and then have a bit of history with the chain that you would buy this NFT. It probably wouldn't become much straight away, but as the network grew, in theory, you would have the original, very early NFT.
Yeah.
And none of that's really happened still after 2 years.
Yeah, you're right. All I can say is that I share your frustration when it comes to Party.com. I will be talking to Brian and trying to understand that, and I will be happy to share an update back with you here or in Telegram once I've had that conversation. And yeah, I think that infrastructure that you're mentioning there, I think having the DEX coming is a great first step. That's not the end, you know, there is more that we need.
It
Well,
might be nice to have Brian on one of these so he can sort of talk to people directly. I think that would be really helpful to get Brian here.
I will invite and strongly encourage, but short of going around to his house with a shotgun, I'm not sure I can guarantee it, but I will do what I can, Cryptid.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Going on from that into another question for Brian. Brian said by July we would have one-click Google Nodes working, and just considering that the node op numbers are falling.
Yeah.
Where is he at with that? How far has he got with one-click nodes?
So Bruce can give an update. From what I understand, we do now have the ability to do one-click node deployment via Google Cloud. The issue with it is it's always going to be a more expensive way to run it. Sorry, I just saw the comments. I do like that NFT collection, Maria. Bruce, am I right in saying that that's now available? That's done?
I don't think it's completely done. I don't think it's ready yet. I'll have to speak to Shirley about that one, and I'll get back to the community with this.
I can speak a bit into that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I mean, we had several conversations with all the big cloud providers, AWS, GCP, Azure, even with Alibaba Cloud, about these solutions where you do like a one-click deployment of validator node or reader node or something like that, and we achieved several levels of partnerships with some of them, which gave some partnership access and some marketing, obviously. But the thing is, and I did this with several layer ones before, some of the ones I worked with, these one-click deployments, even though you upload them to the marketplace of the cloud and you can spin them up, a lot of developers and node operators, they still prefer to provision the resources themselves and install the software. We don't have it on GCP at the moment, but there's a clear path to do it. It's not that difficult in a practical sense to get it up. So if there's a demand, and I would love to hear more about that from the greater community, but especially the node operators, if this is really something that there's a need for. Another thing is that when you have these sort of standard solutions that you can, provision with one click, it doesn't always work like that, because when you spin up like your node, you need still to configure a list of seed nodes with the IP addresses, and that cannot be something static you put in to for example, a Terraform script that runs to provision and deploy. So you would still need some customization, and there's also different opinions on hardware requirements. We could upload a solution where we go for the bare minimum requirements. We could also upload a minimum. We could do a couple of them. Well, what I'm saying here is that for the previous project I worked with, and in general, I haven't seen a real demand for this. When you do these things, it seems to be more like of a way to do marketing together with these cloud providers. But again, I think that this is something we really want to throw back to community. If there is a need, happy to do it. We have established a partnership, and this is a matter of resources and practicality to complete it.
One thing that I'll just add on top of that, I think, is that, and Adrian has mentioned this before, but we're really working hard to make the operation of the nodes, as well as the staking process, smoother and easier. And I think you've seen, hopefully the community has seen that effort, and is continuing to see the results of that effort. So that's the other thing that I'll just add on top, that we're making things easier for the node ops and the stakers.
Yeah, I think if people haven't seen it yet, then try to go into the browser and go to the delegations tab. That's like one of the things we did recently. So now there's a very clear overview of the nodes. There's very clear actions. If you want to do a delegate stake, you can see different stats around the node ops. So we are continuously going towards the path of minimizing the friction for all kind of participants and stakeholders in the ecosystem.
Scripted, did that answer your question? Is this something you think we should have, or are you asking more from an accountability standpoint?
Yeah. No, yes. Well, both really. Accountability, but also I've noticed the improvement in the user interfaces, and I think yes, as many different options people have for running nodes would be good. Allowing people the option to run multiple nodes would also be very beneficial, just because the node numbers are falling, and we need to get as many node ops as possible up and running, and to try and reduce the APR, the amount of tokens that are released to an individual. We need to reduce that.
Yeah, so I think we are going to be doing two things. So one of the events that we were at last week was the Staking Summit, and it was a meeting ground for anybody that operates nodes in Web3. I would say a lot of the big infrastructure providers, and it was a nice opportunity to connect with all of them and kind of give them a little bit around what we're trying to do and why we're excited by it. So I've got follow-up messages with about 10 different organizations that are all kind of interested in Partesian. Not all of them will activate and convert, and but I think I think you're right. I think making sure we bring in more solid operators is going to be important, especially when we're successful with the traction and we start seeing a lot more volume coming through from people that are clients and expect certain performance standards. I also want to see more people looking to hold our token and stake our token. So we've been removing a lot of the friction in delegating stake, so they don't necessarily have to operate nodes themselves. But if there is somebody running a node that is willing to receive stake from others, then that again is another way. The more, the way the APR is calculated is the number of tokens, unlocked tokens that are at work in a given period, and looked against some of the performance mechanisms as well. So if we grow the number of node operators, for sure that will impact. As we grow the number of people that are interested in our token and interested in staking our token, either themselves or through others, that will also impact. And I think within the next, we mapped out the user journeys for people in various different profiles as they come into our ecosystem. And for people coming in and wanting to delegate stake, there were far too many steps, and we are probably about three weeks away from removing 2 of them, which will suddenly make it go from being a very onerous flow to an okay flow. Not the best out there for sure. Certainly not one click, but better. And we'll keep moving forward from there, and we'll try to do that for all of the different journeys.
That's great. That's really great. I mean, as a small base to try and get people that are just really interested in staking and staking rewards on board, want to hold for a little while, that would be really good base.
Yeah, and hopefully that believe and are excited in the mission as well. I think
if there's any way that can be integrated with a mobile wallet, so we can get the sort of people that just operate on phones, which is a huge chunk now, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I don't know when that fits in the roadmap. I would hope we are looking at a collaboration with Staking Rewards, who have a very large community of stakers, and there is a possibility of them building a dashboard within their own interface, which would give us visibility to their audience, but also, this is their bread and butter. Like, they build beautiful interfaces. I don't know whether that would be mobile optimized. And then we've got conversations just at a final stage now with a liquid staking protocol that could build. And again, that I suspect that they will build much nicer interfaces for people that are looking to stake. And then I don't know what's in the roadmap for our wallet infrastructure, but we're looking at a variety of different options. And after next week's meetings, I should be able to give you more clarity on when and where. But I think you're absolutely right. The easier we can make it, the better. Pitbull, is that you saying hello?
Very, very positive.
Sorry, Cryptid, I didn't mean to talk across you. I just noticed Pitbull's wave in the chat, and I didn't know whether you were saying hello or goodbye.
Yeah, I was. Just going back to node operations. For a beginning node op, you've basically got three issues you need to resolve. You need to know what server to use, what underlying server, and we don't have a well-defined minimum or ideal spec for that. We don't really have any guidance for anyone, so that's something that we should resolve. We used to have a good spreadsheet for that a couple of years ago, but it's very out of date, and probably we need to revisit that. Then you need to deploy your base operating system, usually Ubuntu, onto that server and harden it. And that's a big issue for people, because the base deployment from all these providers is just very basic, and there's a lot of hardening you do to make sure that your server's secure after that. So people need guidance on that. And then, of course, is once they've got that running, they need to get a reader node configured, get that synced, and then get that to a state where it's ready to be configured as a baker. And that also we're a little lacking in, I would say, good documentation and good guidance. So there are definitely things we could help with. Certainly the second one, the deployment and hardening of the server, that's very doable via Terraform or Jenkins or something like that, and perhaps that's something we could provide as an automation step. But the rest, I think we just need some decent documentation.
So on that, you haven't had a chance to meet Bettina yet as a community. I will try to bring her into the next community call. She's gotten off to a flying start in terms of looking at our DevRel, the DevRel role. You know, she was making a ton of connections last week. She already has quite a few because she's been in Web3 for a while. And she is taking on our docs. So she's going to take over management of the docs. I'm hoping. I still have to finalize exactly the hows and the whys, but we're planning to take control of the docs and to try to use some of the knowledge in the team and in the community to iterate forwards on them. Like, she's looking at it from a developer standpoint, and there are a number of optimizations she's already identified that we will be looking to implement as quickly as possible. We're also looking to segment out some of the token fundamentals so that people that are coming in that don't want to operate a node and that don't want to build can easily find and access the information they want to about how to get, hold, stake, bridge, wrap, MPC, and what this whole BYOC thing is all about and what our tokenomics are. So generally trying to make information more discoverable for all of our different stakeholder groups. And I would love to involve the community, in particular you and the other operators on the node operator side of things. I'm sure Bruce is probably connected and versed on some of this stuff, but I think we could improve our documentation all round, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we are aware of it and going to be working on it. And then where you think there's scope for automations, again, like this is, yeah, I think you're right, and it would be great to see those coming through.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hey, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. So I joined a bit later, but I could hear most of it. So my question would be regarding, as you said, you're still looking for the main idea, the main narratives you want to follow, but want to focus on IDs and DeSci and for health industry. My question would be, what is your approach in order, or how do you see it to test it and to kind of know, okay, this might be the branch which has the most potential for Partisia and is the one we should dial in? What is your testing approach? Like you said, okay, DID might be interesting, but on the other hand, another one might be also even more interesting. So how are you judging? Are you testing bit by bit the potential and see from there, or first test one and see, okay, here it worked, we going all in on this one? What is your approach on this one?
Yeah, so great questions. I think the headline narrative is clear. You know, this idea that, you know, if we can talk about doing for data what Bitcoin did for money, that feels like we're doing something big, exciting, game changing, that taps into the actual functionality of MPC and this concept of being able to self-custody data and still have rich interactions. And that applies to enterprise and to individuals. And it links back to this proposition statement around the, you know, the Swiss Data Privacy Protocol that anchors firmly in our USP. I think what you're talking about in terms of the narrative, and will be, we have a content bucket that will cycle through those 3 different kind of use case narratives, until we land on one that we go all in on. I would hope in the coming weeks, and the way that we're trying to figure out which one that is we are talking to as many projects in that space as possible. So we are talking to as many different projects that are building in that space that might want to build on Partisia, and gauging their level of interest. Like if they need $1 million to come, they're just not that into us. If they're coming to us and seeing excitement about what they could build or what they could do with our tech, then you kind of know that there's an actual where what we're offering is uniquely valuable to them. And we're vetting all of them against a set of criteria that is, are they aligned? Like, are they using our USPs? Like, are we doing something for them that we can uniquely do? Do they have traction? Do they have transaction volume? Do they have a user base? And how well do we think they can execute, and how quickly could they do that with us? So what in the identity space, we've got a project that I'm very interested in that already provides KYC and KYB services that see a potential ability for us to solve a problem that has been holding them back. That for me is very promising. That says, that there is something we are uniquely placed to solve, or almost uniquely placed to solve. And they already have an established business with large transaction volume. And I'm going to have the next conversation with them tomorrow. I think it's scheduled for. Now we need to have 10 more of those in order to know that it really is, a game changer. We've had a lot of conversations with other identity projects where there could be a strong collaboration, but they're focusing very much on a simple ZKP mechanism that they've already built, perhaps, where they might use us to extend that out. But right now they're just really trying to get traction against the simple use case. We've also got a number of different projects in RWA that we're talking to that again seem to be saying, okay, well, the stuff we can build with Partisia is solving our problems better than the stuff we could build elsewhere. That some of whom have potential for very large transaction volumes. I have yet to have one that has a large base that they could transfer over today, but we're still reaching out to more people. We have a strong adoption team, and they're all hitting the phones, hitting the pavements. It's really about talking to customers and talking to as many as we can, and understanding whether we solve a problem uniquely for them, whether they have transaction volume, and how quickly we could start to see that being implemented and built on Partisia.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ed. Another question I had is regarding Party.com, like CryptID also briefly mentioned. So to understand it briefly, because on the website I see it's on Partisia blockchain. Is it part of Partisia blockchain or Partisia.com?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly what you mean in terms of it's on Partisia.
Is it part of, so is it like a project from Partisia blockchain or the identity Partisia.com, the Partisia.com identity?
So it was at Party.com, and this precedes my time. So there'll be people in this room that can probably answer this better than me. Party.com was set up by one of the original project founders behind Partisia blockchain. He was never involved in Partisia, but he came on board and was one of the founders of Partisia blockchain. He built Party.com to drive adoption and awareness of Partisia blockchain. And as I said to Cryptid, I need to have a conversation with him to understand what's going on right now and see what we can do more effectively together.
Okay, and so is it in this case, as you mentioned, it's part. So is it then you split the budget, the money that was raised between Partisia blockchain and Party.com, or is it then you CEO that has a saying for this kind of as well?
No, so they're just a project that's building on us, or that was the intention. You know, they were obviously very personally invested in the success of the ecosystem. I'm sure that there was a grant. I'm not familiar with the exact details. I know that they were building and maintaining the party wallet for us as well. So I'm just yeah, we're not a shared structure. We don't have, the Partizia blockchain doesn't have equity in Party.com. We don't have a board seat or anything like that. They're just a project that was building in our ecosystem.
Okay, so they're not depending on the funds of Partizia blockchain for the funding, etc., or how is it?
No.
Okay, and then in this case later on, so there could be a work where they could promote Partizia blockchain in this case for the KOLs and for the DEX is already online on Party.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I will be talking with Brian about collaborations and what we can do together. He is personally very invested in Partizia blockchain. So I'm hoping that I can come back to you with good news next time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ed.
My pleasure. Thank you for the questions. I am unfortunately going to have to bounce because I have a call that started 6 minutes ago. But I didn't want to cut this short. Really appreciate the time of everybody that's come here today. As always, if you have anything that comes up after this call and you want to ask any questions, my DMs are open for you all. Feel free to reach out. And yeah, appreciate your time, appreciate your input. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, team.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.